What's
One
up?
of the things when we talk about like standing out and how we used to really put that emphasis on how we look, it I can't help but to think about our man. Shouts out to T Ben, Terrence Ben. If you see this, Terrence, jump in the comments, say what's up to us. That brother was the best dressed um, phone or call center person in the history of call centers.
Immaculate. Every single day, dude had the perfect full Windsor. He had the damn pocket square every day, and dude was immaculate.
Man, one
Like
thing
that.
that people didn't know, because no, I'm sorry, bro, because it was like we were all coming fresh out of college, and we're trying to think like, how did this man have enough income to look like this? But what people didn't know is he sold suits at like a huge department store prior to coming,
Okay.
so he had a leg up on all of us, man. It wasn't fair,
Yeah, I didn't know that about him. All I knew was that dude was just like looking perfect every
man.
day.
I'll finish with this, man. There was this senior leader that used to hate on this man because he was so nice. It called him P Diddy in a meeting. Said he looks like Diddy because he had all of the flowers and the man. Hey, shouts out to T Ben, man. That dude was ahead of his time when it came to how he dressed. Early 2000 call center,
For a phone
fresh to
job.
death.
For a phone job where the clients never saw you. Good for
If they
him.
did, he would have beat us.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. If you can hear the sound of our voice, we want to say thank you and welcome to another episode of Appreciate the Journey, the podcast. I have the pleasure of being one of your hosts. My name is Joe Drew, but I don't come alone. I got my partner in time, my main man, LL. Say what's up to the people, LL.
How's it going, everyone? Happy to be here.
See, I went my main man, LL. He goes, how's it going, everyone? Come on, man. Come on, man. Come on, man. Let me get some energy.
I'm here.
There you go. I'll take it. That if you know Joe Drew, if you know LL, this shouldn't surprise you. That I'm like, he's like, how you doing? Like that's the cool, and I'm the crazy. So here we are with another episode, and we're really excited to introduce this part of our platform, right? And so last week you would have saw an interview where we're talking to someone who we've had in a part of our journey and really dive into what their journey has been like. But for this week's episode, what we want to do is just keep it to Joe Drew LL, and let's talk about some of the things that we've experienced on our journey as we've set up in the previous episodes that intertwines so much. So before we jump into all of that, LL, let's start here. If anybody's new to what we're building, let them know how to tap in, how to plug in. We want you to find out now. How do you plug into what we're building, what we got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find us on all the socials. So at ATJ the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, or you can check us out at our website atjcareercoaching.com. And going along with that is we're building this platform. So number one, we can try and help as many people as possible. But if you're one of those people out there that's looking for a little bit more one-on-one attention, need a little bit more help, maybe you're having issues with your manager or your HR. We'd love to be a coach and a mentor and help guide you along the way.
I love it. Absolutely. And I look forward to going on this journey with whoever, connects with us and seeks our support. I know this to be factual that between our two experiences, we've seen it all. And there's absolutely no point. We said it before, we'll probably say it again. There's no point to go to your grave with all this knowledge, right? What's the point of gaining it if you're not going to share it and pay it forward? So I know it probably sounds pretty corny, but I'm appreciating the journey with you, my man. And I'm excited about this particular conversation.
Yeah. Let's go.
And another part that we want to make sure that we always highlight prior to each of our episodes is Why did we decide to go down this particular path? Why did we name this Appreciate the Journey? So I just want to make sure that we take a quick moment and just highlight the connectivity between the name and the mission of what we're trying to do. So you want to take a quick stab at that, LL?
Yeah, so we've been on this journey together off and on for the last 17, almost 20 years now, and one of the things that I learned um, is that a lot of my successes have come from my interactions with different people. So number
Absolutely.
one, want to show the appreciation for all of these people that have crossed paths with me, but then the other part of it is again what you said was that we've built all this knowledge. I've been the head of HR for a couple institutions, a couple organizations. I've seen quite a bit throughout my career, and what's the point in me hoarding all that, right? So want to use this platform, um, help out as many people as possible, because that is genuinely why I got into HR in the first place, is to help other people succeed. So hopefully by utilizing this platform, reach a wider audience, get more people, drop a little bit of knowledge, hopefully, and help see some people succeed.
Wow. You didn't even leave anything for me. You just knocked it all the way out, hit the
My bad,
ball,
man.
home run, round the base. Don't leave nothing for your boy. I'm just sitting in the dugout. But that's what makes our partnership so cool, man. So I appreciate you sharing that, and I'm looking forward to jump in. Got to throw this out here, LL. If you heard a little bit of noise, this is reality podcasting. It's cold in Detroit, man, and my heat just came on, so I just tried to turn it off. I'm going to brave the elements for our podcast, and I'm turning the heat off. So if you see the icicles start to form on my baby beard, you know why. It's for the mission, man.
You're a true hero.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Somebody has to say it. All right, so let's start here. I just did this. I took the opportunity to stand out, and that is what we want to frame as our topic of conversation for today, is how to stand out in the corporate environment. You and I both, as you so eloquently said, been on this journey together almost 20 years. So when we did first connect back 18, 17 years ago, we were one of many, or two of many people starting their career at this financial institution that we had the pleasure of working. Everybody was in the same job. Everybody was doing the same thing. So it became important for both of us to figure out ways to stand out beyond our peers. And so what we want to do is, since that was the beginning part of our journey together, we want to start there and have a conversation about some of the things we did, some of the things we learned, some of the things we may change now that we're a little more seasoned. I'll say, I'm not going to say older, I'm going to say a little more seasoned. So that is the conversation that we want to have, and we're really looking forward to sharing some wisdom, maybe imparting some wisdom or some nuggets, big rocks, small pebbles that people can take away and implement in their own journey. So just want to frame that up. I want to give you the first stab. Let's take them back to 2006.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the year that I was 2005, year 2006,
Yep.
as we
I was there
have
6.
said a couple times. I'm your elder. You're welcome. So take me back to 2006. What was your mindset jumping into your first job out of the illustrious NC State University?
There we go. Yes. So, my first job, just like you, joined this financial institution as a licensed client service associate. So, what that means is, we spent the first 2 months in a classroom getting licensed, going through training, but then we hopped on the phones, talking to the institution's clients, specifically on the retail side. So, what that meant? Gosh, I don't even know what that means. Is we spent all day talking to clients. That's
All
the
day.
short version of it. Helping them with website issues, helping them with changing addresses, making transactions, looking up fund specific information, and educating them on what all this means. So that was the role itself, but the organization, again, this was a major financial institution, multiple offices throughout the country, and locally in Charlotte. At the time, I want to say there was probably 200 people doing the exact same job. So this goes back to Joe's point earlier, is like, we started these entry level roles. but we really had to stand out because there were so many people doing the exact same thing. So when you have 200 people locally and then another 600 people across the country doing the exact same job, how do you stand out? How do you get that promotion? How do you,
Right.
really shine when you're in the sea of just so many people, right?
So let me
So,
hold that thought. Hold
yep,
that thought right there. You said sea of so many people. Don't forget where you are.
okay,
I just got to make sure that I would just want to throw in there. Um, Not everybody wanted to stand out. So
yep.
I'm even curious about, as you're talking, and I'll share the same. What was your motivation to want to stand out? Because out of that 200, 500 across the country, whatever it was, I would say half were just content and just doing the job. It was, fairly decently easy work and, great company. So I'm curious about that motivation. I was coming as an athlete, basketball throughout high school and college. So it was just kind of in me to compete naturally. But I'm just curious, as you're talking, what was your
Mhm.
motivation for wanting to stand out before we get into how you stood out?
Yeah, initially my motivation was just to make more money. I'll be transparent and
Uh,
honest and just say that, as a 22-year-old kid coming out of school, I just want to make more money.
get
Um,
the bag,
but what
like the
what
kids
what
say,
that
get the bag.
yeah, exactly. But what that evolved into, the more time I spent there, the more time I spent on my team, and learning more, expanding my skill set, I really learned and discovered that I do have this desire to help see my coworkers succeed. Like you,
Mm,
I was very quickly given additional responsibility, so I was helping out all the new people on my team directly at first, and then I got moved to the same helpline that you did, and
mhm.
I really got that motivation from just helping people. So
Wow.
what started as, hey, I'm a poor kid out of college, want to make more money, to, okay, maybe this is what is going to help me make more money, is expanding my skill set into this thing that I actually have a desire and passion to do.
Yeah. So, and what I heard, and I think this is where our similarities really come and start. What I heard is that um, you aligned standing out to something that was intrinsic in you. So it wasn't a fight, right? You didn't have to pull to be a, once you identified, like, I actually like helping people. Oh, and this will help me stand out. That's a perfect marriage. And I felt the same exact way. It was when you're thinking about how do I, and you find something that comes naturally, it accelerates your ability to kind of lean into that quality or that competency. If we're talking, HR terms, I didn't even start saying the word competency until I got into HR. It was just beyond me. Anyway, so that I think that is an important part of the conversation that we'll build on, is just finding something that's natural to you, and that fits your strengths and the qualities that you bring to the table. So I love that you pointed that part out, because you naturally like to help people. Oh yeah, and you're good at it. Boom, beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. So
Hmm.
so that's what that's what essentially kicked off my career at the very beginning. It was, I was working this phone job and did pretty well. Had the opportunity to join the new hire training and onboarding team. So
Hmm.
was given that opportunity and just continue to work my way up. So yeah, it was a wonderful organization, and I'm not trying to take anything away. And I'm so glad you said this earlier, is that there's a lot of people that they're perfectly happy working the job, and there's
Right.
nothing wrong with that. Great organization, decent pay, great benefits. You never took anything home, so yeah, why wouldn't you want to just continue down that path? So,
Right.
um, I think part of this standing out thing is being able to identify like what it is that you want to do as well, right? So maybe you
Yeah.
don't want to stand out, or maybe you just want to stand out as the best at that particular job.
So one thing that you said that I got to double back on this journey together, we always coach each other, right? This is not just something
Hmm.
we started doing because we started a business. This has always been our life. You said something that irritate is the absolute wrong word, but something
It's
that
okay. I
triggers me.
irritate you. I know this.
Yeah, sometimes you do this, but that didn't irritate me. There's other things about you that irritate me. And what you said was, I was given this opportunity. I call BS on that. I was there. I watched. You weren't given anything. You showed up every single day, a level of consistency and professionalism, a level of wisdom beyond your young years. And therefore, you earned or you took an opportunity that a lot of other people wanted, including myself. So nobody gave LL anything. LL snatched it because of how he showed up and how he stood out, even being very young in his career. What were some of the specific things that maybe were beyond the skill sets that you decided to do in order to stand out? Because I got a couple too that I don't even like the fact that I did today, but back then we was chasing the bag, man, and it was a very small bag, but it was a bag nonetheless. What are some of the things that you decided to do?
Yeah. So number one, thank you for saying that. I really appreciate. I earned that, so
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
really means a lot. Um, but things that I did to stand out. Number one, you got to be good at the job in itself, right? So
Sure.
I spent a lot of time reading, the manuals. I don't remember their names anymore, but the online help manuals, right? So I spent a lot of time learning about the systems. I spent a lot of time learning about the um, about the products themselves, the funds, and all of that stuff. So you have to be good at the job in itself, right? So
Mm,
that was really my first step, was becoming really good at the job, but then asking for more responsibilities. And I know this might seem unpopular to some people, like, hey, I'm supposed to be being paid for doing job X. Why am I going to ask for additional responsibilities? But that's how you stand out. That's how you
yeah,
show leadership that, not only can I do my actual job well, but I'm willing to take on more things. I'm willing to jump in on projects. I'm willing to help the newer people on my team. So it's doing things like that, and not being afraid of having stuff delegated to you, because
absolutely.
that is a kind of a potential pitfall. Is once you start asking for more responsibilities and you're good at taking on more responsibilities, you're going to get more and more. So just
Absolutely.
be aware of that. But that was my initial path, was just one, getting good at the job, and then asking for additional project work, asking for additional responsibilities, and doing what I can to really show people that, hey, not only can I do the job, but I can take on whatever other future potential roles or opportunities could be. So
Yeah.
that
No,
that that
I
was
love
what
it.
I did, and I know you
Yeah.
did something very similar, but also went on a slightly different path. So Joe, why don't you tell us, like what did you do?
Absolutely. No, yeah, and it's like you said, very similar. Being good at the job, because finance wasn't something that I had studied in school. It wasn't a natural thing. I had to immerse myself in it so that I can even understand what it was that I was responsible for doing. So because I put so much energy into that journey during licensing and training, I retained a lot. And retention was already a skill set of mine. I already had that ability to catch on quickly. So that was, to your point, the first thing: get good at the job. Get to that point where the leadership and your peers have trust in what you have to say. So that was important. But then, and I can't say this was super strategic. Like I wasn't like very savvy, but in my mind, the simplest thing was understand the not the information and figure out a way to meet people where they are and deliver it. So while a lot of people were focused on talking at such a high level and showing how smart they were, I was focused on how can I dumb this down? And it turned out that that became a huge skill set for me to stand out because that's what the clients needed. Forget the peers, forget being able to say I'm the smartest finance person in the room. And that role is about the clients. So how do you figure out a way to meet them where they are? So because plain talk is just a natural skill set of mine, I was able to take these complex concepts and be able to talk to a CEO or intern, be able to talk to someone on Wall Street or someone who has made their living as a farmer. And not saying that one is better or worse, but as we all know, that communication is different in those different walks of life. And so that the ability to adjust was my path to standing out. In addition to just we work some long hours. I think we've told this. If you haven't heard it, LL and I both work these schedules that had us on 10.5 hour days, 3 days a week, and then one short day, 7 hours or whatever it was, in order to get our full week. But you had these really long days. So I had to find ways to laugh and smile in order to get through these long days, because that energy gave other people energy. That was the other kind of trick for me, was I was looked at to break down some of the thickness and the challenge in the air, and kind of bring a little laughter, and a little jovial personality to it. And we'll talk about a little later, that didn't all work out well for me. But because that was something that people saw was my authentic personality, it allowed me to kind of stand out beyond others, and get opportunities to do projects and all the things that you said, and not be afraid to take them. I gotta add, what you didn't say it, but I gotta say it because I was there, right? You also used to walk in the building looking like fresh out the GQ magazine. Now, people, call center, early 2000, no video conference. If it was a video conference, it would be like your chin up. This brother used to walk in here just looking great, suits, perfect, ironed your shirt that morning. So what about that? What was that mindset like?
Listen, so the organization, number one, we were they had a policy of being business professional every single day. And for that organization, what that meant was for men, shirts and ties. Like you were required to wear a tie for a call center job where there's no video conference. But I don't want to say I took it a huge step forward, but I just suited up every day like that. That's all it was. I had my shirt and tie, but I made sure I wore a full suit. And part of that was because there's a gentleman, I can't remember his name anymore, but he was like four levels above me. Essentially, he was like the head of the department. But that man basically walked around exactly the same, full suit, looking good, great posture, great speaking voice. And it's one of those things that when I was really young in my career is like, what do you have to do? You emulate, you emulate the job that you want, right? So I saw this guy. I was like, okay, I want to get to wherever he is. I want to drive the Beamer that he's driving. I want to, all the great things that this man walks in with every single day. That was the goal. So how do I get there? Well, let me suit up every day just like him, right? So just doing something simple like that. And I know it's not applicable in today's much more business casual world and much more remote based work, but at the time it was, okay, this is another way for me to stand out, is to make sure I always look good. And you and I both know, Joe, and I may have been guilty of this once or twice while I was there, but we were all young. Everyone in the department was young. We all went out drinking after work. There's a good handful of people that showed up to work the next day hungover, looking like they're hungover, looking like they partied all night. And I didn't want to fall into that category, right? So always making sure that, again, the shirt was ironed, the suit was looking good, hair was done, like everything, right? So that was another way that I know I stood out, because I received comments about it all the time. I was like, yeah, you're looking really great today, looking very professional. And part of that just kind of motivated me, because again, I want to end up being like this dude that was running the department.
Man, so listen, you said something. I have a similar story, but I'm gonna use it to segue into something different that I did in my attempt to stand out. So the suit thing, all I know I didn't come as polished as you were. Now today, my closet is a little different, brother. I'll come for you today, but back then, I was a lot bigger, and the suits weren't readily available. There weren't that many colors available for the kid back then. But anyway, I had a mentor or a leader who were invested in me, maybe a sponsor, some would say. Their advice, and this is something that I'm not proud of, because I don't think that a person should have to conform. But in that environment, with the lack of knowledge that I had at that time, I had no choice but to just listen. I had my ears pierced at the time, right? And I vividly remember him saying, if you want to continue down the path that you're going, you have to take those earrings off. And I'm like, what? Take my ear? Like, what does that have to do with anything? But I listened to it. And my message is not to conform and live. If someone tells you that, you stop wearing your hair like that or whatever it is, I say push back, right? Because that's just not
100%.
that's not appropriate in today's environment. However, the message that I have was that I was coachable, right? I understood that there are people who had accomplished things that I was looking to accomplish. If they took the time to give me a message, whether I liked it or not, I was going to receive it and find ways to implement the parts that I felt was necessary. And back then, early in my career, I didn't have a judgment, right? I didn't have discernment one way or another. So I just applied it. And it was great lessons learned. And now I have more fortitude in that space. But I was 22, 23, right? Like, if you tell me that that's going to help me, I'm going to listen. I'm going to be coachable, especially if it didn't go against any of my integrity. And that didn't go against my integrity. I was hearing it from my parents all the time anyway. Like, you can't get a job with those earrings. I remember in college, I had the Allen Iverson cornrows, and my mom like, cut that off. Whereas today, it wouldn't be an issue. It wouldn't be a problem. I got a tattoo, and she's like, make sure you can't see it under your short sleeve shirt. So all of those things that were something to be thought about and looked at back then, definitely not today. But the coachable, and then I sought after mentorship. I sought after sponsorship. I was not afraid to see the senior most leader, stop them in their tracks, introduce myself, ask them if I can get some time. So what that led to was being able to know that I was being talked about when I wasn't there by someone of influence, because I took the time to make sure that they knew who I was and what I was there to do. So that is something I would impress upon anybody still to this day. Don't be afraid to proactively create a network and connections, especially when you're young in your career or young at that particular organization or company.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something really important, is that coachability piece, being open to feedback. And I feel like in today's day and age, people are afraid to get that feedback. And people are, number one, afraid to give feedback because they're, I don't know, afraid of hurting feelings or whatever it could be. And people are afraid of receiving feedback, just because I don't know. Maybe people just have egos, whatever it could be. But I feel like that this is something that's so important that doesn't get touched on enough, is being coachable. One of my favorite people in the entire world. Hopefully, we can get him on the show. Somebody that I hired years ago, not straight out of school, but pretty much straight out of school. He came in as a recruiter on my team, and just came in with the best attitude, wanting to learn everything, super coachable, really good at taking feedback. I mean, that, like, no joke, this dude messed up on some pretty big things, but was so open to learning from it. And he's still at the company, he's still thriving, he's since been promoted numerous times. So that coachability piece, man, like I cannot emphasize that enough, and I'm so glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, no, I love, and yeah, we gotta get him on the show. Josh, I already know what you talk about. We coming for you, Josh. We got to get him on the show because I love that guy, and part of both of our journeys. So yeah, no, absolutely, great point there. So let's take a quick turn. So we threw out a lot of cool things, right? A lot of nuggets. You're going to hear me say this ad nauseum. A lot of big rocks, a lot of small pebbles that you find on your journey. We talked about coachability. We talked about, something as simple as dressing for the job you want, even though that's not as important, but having a mindset of thriving for something that you haven't even accomplished yet. You don't have to wait till you're there to operate in that matter. We talked about subject matter expertise, and just taking a moment from a simple standpoint, just learn your damn job and learn it well, right? We talked about that, and we talked about opening yourself up to helping and supporting others, finding sponsorship, mentorship. So there's a lot of nuggets there, and I hope you all are picking them up. Now, what I want to do is now kind of shift it and talk about, is there any moments that any of that stuff didn't go well for you? Is there any moments where you were trying to stand out and it turned out, it boom, just blew up in your face, and you had to learn the lesson around how you can't apply the same recipe to every single meal, if I could use that analogy?
You and I are going to have a very similar response to this. So
Okay.
once I was on the new hire training and onboarding team, I feel like part of my success while I was there was my ability to relate to people, my ability to work with
Sure.
people. Um, you know,
Absolutely.
understanding like everyone's different learning styles and being able to coach them up the right way and lead them through the new hire training and onboarding program. So I was one of those people throughout the entire organization that, quote unquote, had a lot of friends just because I was in a role where I got to meet everyone. And I was in a role where I got to work with everyone. So I became friends with everyone. And that's one of the things that made me really successful in that job. However,
Absolutely.
um, once I was ready to leave that particular role and move into a more of a leadership role, that was the exact same feedback I received for not getting certain leadership roles was, well, you're too close of friends with everyone. You can't manage your
Wow.
friends. You can't lead your friends. You're just too friendly with everyone. So that's going to be that was a really tough part in my career, was having to kind of learn that about myself, is that okay, I can't apply the exact same formula of what made me successful in my past role into my future roles. So
Absolutely.
Joe, I know you have a very similar type of experience, so I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we could put a pin on our parking lot, whatever we want to call it, we have to come back to the managing your friend conversation in another
Yeah,
episode.
yeah.
Because you led me, and I'm your boy. At least I think I am. Some days on Wednesdays and Fridays. So you led me. I've led my friends. There's a lot of nuggets there that we got to talk about. So I say it out loud so that maybe our Appreciate the Journey family, the audience, can keep us accountable. And if you haven't heard that episode in like the next couple months, then hit LL up directly. LL at atjcareercoaching.com. So anyway,
Appreciate that.
my no problem, bro. My answer to that is similar, but I'll go a little more specific. I talked about, you know, shocker. I think I'm funny, right? If you watched the first 10 minutes of this episode, shock, boo. But that was something that, especially in challenging times where you're on the phone all day, maybe something happened in the market and people are very tense, things of that nature. The fact that I had this timing to, kind of crack some jokes, poke fun at people, like that's always endearment growing up for me. Like if I have a joke for you, I like you, right? And if I don't, we probably don't get along very well. So that was something that was working well for me. People were gravitating to me. People like to be around me because they know you'll probably get a good chuckle. Maybe I just made this all up in my mind. They're laughing at me, but this is my time and my story, so you just got to rock with me. That turned out to be a negative or a challenge in my career journey. There was one specific moment, I'll never forget it. We're sitting around, it was one of the very few down moments. Nobody was calling, it was later in the evening. So, you had these groups of all young, 20 somethings hanging out, cracking jokes, laughing. And one of the peers got offended by one of the jokes. Now, don't get me wrong, she was delivering them too, but that's neither here nor there, because at the end of the day, if someone now gets offended, all things must cease. I did not have that professional wisdom yet. And, if a couple people laugh at me, that means keep going. Especially back then. And so, we just kept it going, and, we kept them flying, and whatever the topic was, we did. That was my first call to HR. So funny enough, fast forward, I became employee relations in my career. But one of the most memorable early moments of my career was employee relations calling me, and me
Mhm.
had me thinking like, I'm about to have to move back home. I'm about to get fired from this job because it was a serious moment. There was a report that you could have been seen as bullying because you were not, don't get me wrong, they were involved, but the moment that they became uncomfortable, now is no longer a fun moment, right?
Yeah.
And so thankfully, I had some grace and I was put on a warning. So we talked about how quickly we started to accelerate in our career. I had to take about a 6 month, I think, if I'm not mistaken, pause on that. I couldn't be promoted. I couldn't take projects. I just had to do my job without any side stuff for 6 months, or I was going to have to go back and see the employee relations person who later on in life built a friendship, and I remember telling her how scared of her I was because I thought she was about to, take me away from the job that I had worked really hard to learn and understand and try to accelerate in. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a tough lesson to learn. You have to understand when to apply it. You have to know, what the boundaries are, and you never can allow those jovial moments to turn into an attack on a person, even if it's innocent, right? And so I had to learn that lesson and that skill set. I had to kind of dial it back a little bit and show that I could be serious enough to lead, but also stay true to the person I am, which I just like to have fun and smile and have a good time. So, hell of a lesson, man. And I'm thanking Lisa. You know where you are, Lisa. I always appreciate you forcing me to mature in that moment without kicking me out the door.
Yeah, that's really great. And think about those. That it was Lisa and another lady that was in the employee
Betty.
relations, and the I don't know. It was just like one of those internal stories that, like, hey, if their names ever pop up on your caller ID, you're gone. So make sure you grab your keys, your wallet, like everything, right? So
I did
I
that.
understand. I
I
understand
did that.
seeing one of those names pop up, the fear of losing your job. So
Yeah, I did that. I grabbed my keys. I grabbed my phone or whatever. I guess cell phones were like kind of big. Yeah, I grabbed all my belongings and went to see her.
mhm.
And thankfully, I was able to come back because there were still 9.5 more years in that journey. So that was the first year. I still worked there for 9.5 more years. So just imagine if I didn't learn that lesson, how that could have stunted the growth that I was able to have or achieve, throughout
Mhm.
that journey at that wonderful organization. Shouts out to them.
And all of the accomplishments that you were able to achieve at that organization.
Crazy, crazy. You just never know what lessons you may learn throughout your journey, but that's why we felt so compelled to start this platform because we want you to appreciate those lessons. And every lesson that you appreciate is not going to be positive. Quite
Mhm.
frankly, I'm here maybe to argue that some of the richest lessons are probably negative, right? Because they give you a feeling that the average person is like, I don't want to feel that again. So how do I adjust? How do I change? How do I approach it differently so that I can never feel that again? So that's part of the motivation behind um, this great podcast. I
You
said
said
it
it.
great. Most people should tell us it's great, but that's a lesson I haven't learned. I'm gonna just put it out there first. It's great, yeah. So hopefully we can live up to that, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure we can.
I
We
know
got this.
we absolutely will. So, LL, we are coming close. This has been a rich conversation. We always want to be efficient with the conversation. So if you're driving or if you just have a quick break at work and you just want to listen to your homies LL and Joe Drew, we want it to be a short conversation so that you can get through it all and then hopefully tap back into the next one. But as we'll always do and get kind of customary for anyone listening to know, we're going to do a couple things. First off, we're going to show some appreciation, right? So this segment, as you've heard in the previous episodes, is called Giving the Flowers. LL, I'm gonna come to you. I want you to take a moment, give some flowers out, to show some appreciation for somebody who's been impactful on your journey, and then I'll do the same. And then from there, we're gonna finish out with you again, letting people know how do they tap into the ATJ platform. So the ball is yours, LL.
All right. So I am going to go with a gentleman by the name of Dan Conti. He was my manager at that organization when I was in the new hire
Yeah.
training and onboarding role.
Mm-hmm.
This man took me under his wings, kind of taught me everything. I don't want to say everything that he knows because I still have a lot to learn. But he's just one of these brilliant guys that I worked for. and what was really instrumental in molding the man that I've become today. So Dan Conti, just a wonderful manager when I was working on the new hire training on the boarding team.
Yeah, absolutely. Shouts out to Dan, man. I love that guy. We'll have to tell the story more in depth of how I jumped into your job, right? And you had to carry me along as your partner in that role while I was kind of in between roles. And it was Dan who raised his hand and said, "I'll take the big fella." I second that flower. Shouts out to Dan. For me, well, because of the topic being standing out, I'd be remiss if I didn't take a moment to give flowers to someone who wasn't a part of my professional jersey journey per se. He was more of a external influence, but became a great friend and mentor. His name is Joseph Butler, more affectionately known as Mr. Joe. And so there's a lot of story there. I won't share too much because eventually we got to get this man on the pod. But I worked with him when I took a brief stint in the United Way while still working for the financial institution that we met. I was able to share my talents with the United Way, and that's where I met him. And he inspired me to use my voice as a skill set. You know, I used to think that the fact that I like to be a public speaker, the fact that I could command a room, so to speak, was just something nice to have. I never realized that it was an actual skill that someone would compensate you for. And he inspired and helped develop and bring that out of me. He's probably the most positive man I've ever known. And he still continues to do amazing things with philanthropy and so on and so forth. So my roles goes to Mr. Joe. I'm forever indebted to him for the inspiration and the opportunity to tag along. It's how I got into radio. So, you know, some people will learn about my journey. I did 3 years of talk radio down in Charlotte. It was his show first, and then it became our show. So I got nothing but love for that man, and I look forward to being able to give him an embrace in person. I haven't seen him in a few years, and maybe I'll bring that long stem rose to give to him. Like, not, you know, not in a weird way, bro. Just take the flower and, you know, and like it. That's what I'm gonna do. So yeah, with that being said, let's close it out for today, LL. This has been an awesome conversation on how to stand out. For anybody who's tapping in, who's listening in, if you have thoughts, throw it in the comments. We would love to hear your thoughts, to receive your feedback, and maybe some of those thoughts we'll highlight in future episodes. So don't be afraid to drop some notes in our comments. Before we get out of here, LL, again, for anybody who may have joined late, how can they tap in to the ATJ?
Like, subscribe, follow us, drop comments at ATJ, the podcast, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, or at our website, atjcareercoaching.com. You know, obviously what we talked about today is as much as we could get in, you know, a short 30, 40-minute podcast, but there's obviously so much more that you could do. If you need help coming up with ideas, we'd love to help. So atjcareercoaching.com or ATJ, the podcast, on all the socials.
On behalf of that handsome gentleman, LL, I'm JoeDREW. Never forget that, in our opinion, the destination is the journey. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.